Welcome to Redacted on this Tuesday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris. I hope you can hear us now.
Yes, welcome to the show. We've got a very busy show for you. We spent, the last 24 hours rejiggering a lot of wires and fixing a lot of things. I saw Jimmy Dore had all kinds of internet issues too.
Oh, really?
I think
sound is one thing you absolutely need from us, because I want to just tell you right now, we don't dance. We don't do magic tricks on this show. Talking is really all we do. So you kind of need that part.
sometimes I pull a rabbit out of my hat.
No, he doesn't do that. Don't tell them that, because they'll wait around for that to happen and be so disappointed.
But we do have a busy show for you on this Tuesday. I'm in a good mood. I've had some coffee, and we've got a ton of stories to get to today. Some really big pieces of news that have developed over the past few hours we're going to bring to you. We're going to talk about Vladimir Putin going after the World Economic Forum, in not even pulling any punches, like direct threats on the unipolar order, and aligning himself even further with North Korea. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And plus, they actually had a weapons conference in Moscow showing off some captured United States weapons. Yes, weapons that they pulled from the battlefield of Ukraine. We'll show you all of that.
Plus, the World Health Economic Forum wants you to start eating bugs. This idea is bugging me. Get it? We're going to talk about whether or not you should embrace the idea of eating bugs.
How many of you currently are eating bugs, like as a part of your normal diet? How many of you would be open to that in order to stop the climate emergency, which they're telling us is emerging, is happening right now? We're all
Sometimes
gonna die.
when I ride my bike, I accidentally eat a bug.
Do you ever see that video, that famous video that there was like a reporter in like Mississippi or something?
No.
And he's like doing a live shot.
Oh, yes, yes,
yes. Oh, I got to get out of this godforsaken, because he swallows a bug, and he's like, God, dude. That went viral. Yeah. We've all been there. We've all eaten bugs inadvertently. But if you would choose to do it as part of your meal plan, we're going to tell you some of the actual toxicity involved in this too, which is not being reported. We're going to talk about that side of it. We're also going to talk about, we're going to go to the north. We're going to talk about the dictator-in-chief up in Canada. Some newly released vaccine data as it relates to some court documents that have just been released thanks to a lawsuit. Some great reporting on this story out of Canada. Was science involved in these lockdowns and mandates, or was something else at play? So we'll dive into that.
Plus, we are going to have a man mansplain menstruation to us. I cannot wait for this, because women love that when men tell us about our periods. And we're going to have a little of that courtesy of the government of Scotland.
Yeah, all of that and more as Redacted starts right now. What?
The chat room is being ridiculous. I don't even know what there's.
The chat room is being ridiculous?
Yes. Too many funny things.
And Anton Go says a hedgehog a day keeps the doctor away. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
Manny
either.
says grass-fed cockroaches. Yeah, if you're going to eat cockroaches, you've got to make sure that they're free-range cockroaches.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want them in like a little, oppressive farm where too many. Okay, we're gonna, try to take this seriously, but again, this is a conversation about bugs.
I mean, what's amazing to me, so someone wrote to me this morning I read all the comments on our YouTube videos, and someone said, I'm just trying to find out some more information, like from sourcing some of your stories. And we try to always put the source of an article or news source, if it's a soundbite, on the screen. We're going to tell you who's saying it. We're going to show you the news article, where this comes from, or if it's our own personal sources. We've spent many years as journalists, so we have a lot of our own individual sourcing as well, which we'll say here. So someone wrote to me and said, I'm interested in some of the sourcing around the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And I said, actually, a lot of it is printed right on their website. So when we pull direct primary sources from the World Economic Forum,
yes,
like this isn't bullshit. Like, this isn't like some guy joking around about this, some conspiracy theorist. No, it's right on their website, or it's from their meeting notes, and you can read it right from their meetings or public meetings that we've, in some of their conferences that we featured here on the show. So it's all available.
It's hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, it's really strange. But I'll tell you something else that's hidden in plain sight is our daily newsletter. I'd love for all of you to sign up and subscribe. It's totally free. It'll be delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning, or usually around 6:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you're in the United States, about 11:30 or so global GMT. Just go to redacted.inc. That's the website to sign up, redacted.inc, not .com, and just become a member, and you'll get the newsletter for free. It's totally free, delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning.
I'm not going to be able to stop itching because we're talking about bugs.
You get itchy when you think about bugs?
I am. Like, I feel like, do I have a hair on my face, or is it just psychosomatic?
No.
It's a cockroach.
Yeah, it's a cockroach.
Like,
it's a
right
cricket.
here, you don't see anything?
No. Do you guys see anything? Can you take camera 2 or whatever her camera is?
Is there like a...
Is there a cockroach?
Right here?
Is there a cockroach?
Nope, I don't see anything.
Okay, and then
I've had
also
that feeling
I'm
before
finding this-
myself.
Okay. I'm sorry if I'm making you itch at home, but... Okay, we're going to get to that story.
Do you have a beard? Andy wants to know if you have a beard. Yeah, did you shave? She doesn't have a beard.
No.
No, I'm a little itchy too.
No. No one's mentioned Clayton's awesome shirt. Anybody?
I did see someone say they like the shirt.
Oh, no.
Excuse me, I did.
Well, yes, except David.
Seeking and Being says.
Oh,
nice
there
shirt,
we
Clayton.
go.
Yes.
Yeah, Gargle this. I'm not going to say that name. Likes your shirt. It's a...
Gargle my nutbag. I'll say it.
I was not going to say that.
Thank you, Gargle my nutbag.
Now it's on the screen behind you.
Right. If you become a channel member, Gargle my nutbag. Thank you.
They paid for that. They paid $2 to say that. That was a super chat.
Thank you.
They deserved it. So if you watch this
Thank you.
most recent episode, this most recent season of Stranger Things, you know what the shirt is about.
Yes.
And I had to get that for Clayton. I ordered it and it came today, and I was going to save it for our anniversary in October, but I was like, he needs this now.
And I'll wear it every day.
Super timely.
No, this is a shirt. This is a very comfortable shirt, and I will wear it all the time. This is like perfect. All right. So let's dive into today's top story, shall we? And let's talk about Vladimir Putin versus the World Economic Forum. So there's a conference happening right now in Moscow, the Moscow conference, where President Putin spoke just this morning. And he had a couple of things to say about the World Economic Forum, among other things, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He also accused most of the West of provoking China. And he talked about this sort of war complex that, interestingly enough, is something that we talk about a lot on this show.
By the way, we should mention that zero coverage of this will be on CNN. Like, if you see this speech by Vladimir Putin on CNN, I will fall over. Because they're wall-to-wall coverage right now on President Trump, of course, right? Or if you see this on the BBC, I would be shocked. If you see this on any of the mainstream media, I would be stunned. So again, basically Vladimir Putin destroying the World Economic Forum and the unipolar order, instead saying flat out, countries need to be sovereign, people need to have their own individual identities. Take a listen to, with subtitles here, what Vladimir Putin had to say at the Moscow conference.
Ситуация на Украине показывает, что США пытаются затянуть этот конфликт. И точно так же они действуют, разжигая конфликтный потенциал в Азии, Африке, Латинской Америке. Как известно, недавно США в очередной раз сознательно попытались подлить масло в огонь и раскачать ситуацию в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском регионе. Американская авантюра в отношении Тайваня – это не просто поездка отдельного безответственного политика, а часть целенаправленной, сознательной стратегии США по дестабилизации и хаотизации обстановки в регионе и мире. Наглая демонстрация неуважения к суверенитету других стран и к своим международным обязательствам. Видим в этом тщательно спланированную провокацию. Очевидно, что с помощью подобных действий западные глобалистские элиты, в том числе, пытаются отвлечь внимание своих собственных граждан от острых социально-экономических проблем. Падения уровня жизни, безработицы, бедности, деиндустриализации. Переложить собственные провалы на другие страны, на Россию, на Китай, которые отстаивают свою точку зрения. строит суверенную политику развития, не подчиняясь диктату наднациональных элит.
So a couple of things stand out there. He mentioned Nancy Pelosi and specifically called her irresponsible and rude. He said it is not, this visit to Taiwan was not just one irresponsible politician. It was altogether a rude gesture.
And a strategy. A targeted strategy.
Yes.
And again, why then does the Senate delegation fly? And by the way, this afternoon, China ramping up all sorts of military exercises as we speak, literally right now, thanks to this latest Senate delegation flying into Taiwan. Targeted strategy to provoke China. That's exactly what's happening. And the fact that you even have Henry Kissinger, war criminal, warmonger, saying the exact same thing. So they're on the same page. Who would ever have thought that Vladimir Putin and Henry Kissinger would be on the same page?
Right.
But I mean, he talks about this hegemony, right? This unipolar idea, which is this globalist identity, which is this idea that Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and all of these unelected billionaires and some elected have come together and are trying to direct power under one, I don't know, what's the best way to describe this? Unelected body. And they're going to tell countries how to live. So you might have grown soybeans for generations in your country. Well, we're done with you growing soybeans. We're going to tell you now, because of this new world order, that you're not growing soybeans anymore. You're part of the unimind, the unipolar order. So now you're going to be just growing coffee. That's it. Doesn't matter how your economy will suffer. It doesn't matter what land we will take away from you, like we're doing to the farmers in the Netherlands and all across in Canada and all across the world right now. We're going to consolidate power and we're going to run the show. And that's exactly what Vladimir Putin was condemning and targeting and saying this is not going to happen as we align our BRICS nations. He talked also about unifying and creating a new gold standard away from the World Economic Forum standard, which is a corrupt standard of measuring gold, saying, look, now that the BRICS nations are moving towards a commodity-based, gold-based standard for our currency, we're not going to use your corrupt way of measuring gold anymore. We're going to do it our way, where we're actually going to measure it authentically so that these economies can run properly.
Right, and you can see just clearly these lines of unity being drawn across the globe, right? So with these types of words and these types of actions, sure, the United States might be able to expand NATO to a few small European nations, but it will solidify the BRICS nations, which is even more dangerous, a formidable of an enemy.
Now, before we get to, I just want to kind of paint a picture here about the World Economic Forum piece of this, because, and I want to get to Klaus Schwab in a second, because Western journalists, and I see it sometimes in our chat from people who will kind of say, well, they're all a part of the WEF. Putin is a part of the WEF as well. And that's just flat out wrong. And Western journalists and Western media will try to portray it that way. Mm-hmm. And in fact, journalists who understand this and who have been covering it for a long time understand that that's absolutely not the case. Yes, he couldn't be invited to speak, which we'll get to in a moment, but that doesn't mean he's a part of it. In fact, it's the exact opposite. But something interesting happened just nearby where he was speaking. So he was speaking at the Moscow conference, and I thought that this was a fascinating piece of news, because the conference was just across the street or nearby, was showing off at this military conference, showing off weapons, the Russian military. And so if you walk through the hall at this conference, nearby where President Putin was speaking, two separate conferences, what do you see here? Those are U.S. weapons. Those are U.S. weapons that are both captured and bought on the black market. And they're being featured at this weapons conference. And basically, according to the people who were there, saying they're being shown off as an example of what not to buy and what not to use, because they've either been captured or they've been destroyed on the field of battle. See that American flag?
Oh,
that's an American howitzer. And there's also M77.
Can I just ask an ignorant question, though?
Okay.
It is possible that someone could have just painted that on right?
No, it's not. I mean, these are American weapons. These are not made by Russia. So, I mean, according to the sources who were there looking at these weapons, unless Russia has manufactured their own version of these, with fabricated serial numbers and others. Some of the other ones were actually destroyed. We can put these up on the screen. The U.S. howitzer was bought because it was in perfect condition. And the journalist who was covering this believes that it was bought on the black market because a lot of the weapons obviously going to Ukraine
don't make it to the battlefield.
Don't make it to the battlefield. So they're there on the battlefield. I mean, if you just walk through this conference to see American weapons on display in Russia, and what they're telling you is, and if you listen to the military operators there, what they're saying is, these weapons were built for an asymmetrical war.
What does that mean? That
means that the United States has been going up against guys on camels, basically, who are not fighting back. And these weapons are made to, a lot of the weapons that the United States works with Boeing and Raytheon and all of these companies, they're meant to need servicing on an absolute regular basis because it's all a huge money grab.
Right.
So if you walk through this conference and what the military, these contractors are saying is, here's better equipment that is now field tested in Ukraine. And they're showing off Russian weapons against Ukrainian Azov battalion and others that to great success in a short amount of time. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's just, to me,
boy, that feels really good to
know that
pay
your
taxes.
tax dollars, your tax dollars going to those things. I just found that absolutely fascinating.
And if they're ending up in the hands of those people, it's like, who else do they end up in the hands of? Like, if they're not tracking any of this, it could end up in, I'm kind of against the war on drugs or whatever, but it could end up in the drug dealers' hands, and they could be using this to, do things to their enemies. Like, these are serious weapons that are obviously being sold on the black market to whoever's got the money.
Yeah, I mean, look, Marty in our chat says Afghanistan sold weapons in the black market. Of course, this is how they're making money. This is exactly the problem in Syria. We've covered it here on the show, right? Al-Qaeda, we have been funding Al-Qaeda for years in Syria, right? And you can just ask great journalists, Kevork Almassian, Vanessa Beeley, who's in Damascus, who we've interviewed here on the show, read fantastic reporting at the Gray Zone. You can go through these details. You can see, in fact, even the New York Times acknowledged this, that we are funneling money to Al-Qaeda by them basically, here's our weapons, you sell them and you fund yourself. We're going to use you in our proxy war in Syria against Assad. This is how it works. I'm just stunned by this. Like, he's giving a speech about this unipolar order, and they're showing off American weapons that have been bought on the black market and destroyed by Russia. So again, just come back to this thought. Why American weapons on the field of Ukraine destroyed by Russian forces, NATO forces, and here they are being shown off as clunkers, basically.
Well, as we move on to something that Putin said, it sort of makes sense how Western forces make so much money off of funding wars that are not in and around their backyard, right? So Putin later pointed to the AUKUS, I'm not sure if that's how we're saying it, AUKUS package. It's a pact that was established last fall in September of 2021 that the U.S. aims to build. Putin is saying that with this pact, the U.S. is aiming to build a NATO region in Asia. Now, AUKUS stands for Australia, the UK, and the U.S. So it's a pact between those three nations, and it does very much seem like a Asian Pacific NATO. When it was announced last September, the White House called it that it was.
Let's put this up on the screen.
Yes, please. That it was around to deepen diplomatic security and defense cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region, including by working with partners to meet the challenges of the 21st century. And as part of this effort, we are announcing the creation of an enhanced trilateral security partnership called AUKUS: Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
Someone in our chat says, Rockout Blackout says, I didn't know the UK was in the Pacific. Hey, is the United States in the Pacific?
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
right?
You're going to see
everywhere we want to be.
Exactly why they care, right? So further explanation of what they are. They say, we endeavor with the launch today to sustain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region, which for more than 70 years, it says Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States have worked together, along with important allied partners, to protect our shared values and promote security and prosperity. Now, they don't specifically mention China, but they do sort of say we need to protect ourselves from sort of influence in this region. So when AUKUS was established, What was its first order of business? Well, you can see that they wanted to provide submarines to Australia.
Nuclear submarines.
With, yes, conventionally armed and nuclear powered submarines with the capability at the earliest possible date while upholding the non-proliferation standards, because Australia is a non-prolific or non-nuclear country, but Australia was willing to host these nuclear submarines, right? This is why they did not go to New Zealand, because New Zealand also is non-prolific. Now, as you can imagine, China dislikes AUKUS too. So this was something that Putin called out yesterday, saying this is clearly their attempt to establish NATO in this region. We're not going to stand for it. And they're telling us what they're doing. We should believe them, right? So when this was announced last year, of course, China didn't like it. They called it a Cold War mentality. And it was also just kind of a dickish business move, because Australia, before this pact, had a pact with France to buy submarines. But they canceled this deal once the U.S. came along and said, buy from us instead. And the French ambassador in Australia was recalled after this move because France was so upset about it. This is from the BBC. It says the pact also created a row. I think you're supposed to say this word, a row.
A row.
If you're British.
If you're British.
It created a row with France, which means like a tiff, which now has lost a deal with Australia to build these 12 submarines. And the French foreign minister said it's really a stab in the back. So you can see that the United States has no problem moving into areas where they can establish these sort of peace conventions or peace pacts, right? If there is an opportunity to sell something like a nuclear submarine, which is exactly what is happening. So when President Putin called this out yesterday, it's incumbent on the rest of us to pay attention and realize, what is this? We're doing that? I didn't know we were doing that.
Well,
So-
and
yeah.
it also it baffles me. So it's like we've talked about this a lot on this show, how they don't track these weapons, and it feels like that's by design, because the more weapons they lose, the more weapons that end up where they can't track it, the more they're going to be like, oh, we need more weapons because we're trying to get them to Ukraine. And it also gives them a propaganda story, because they can be like, oh, this country stole them, or these ISIS stole them, or whatever. So because you're talking about weapons, they track food better than they do weapons in grocery stores. So
No, this is all part of the
seems
plan.
like
it is all part of the
it
plan.
has to be.
Because this is exactly how the weapons manufacturers want it. They don't care. In fact, we played for you on this show the sounds of a number of CEOs. I forget, was it the...
I think it was the Raytheon CEO saying, well, a lot of those weapons are not going to make it there, so that's good for us.
It's good for us.
We'll keep it. It's going to be a banner year, everybody.
And when I talk about these weapons, the ones that they're showing off at this weapons conference, they're designed to be like disposable. They're designed for an asymmetrical warfare, right? They're designed to go up against guys on camels and horseback. And even there, we didn't do... I mean, think about 20-year war in Afghanistan at the end of the day. And what did we get for it? We know how that ended, right? So now you're up against a real army. And as we've talked about before on the show, we've had anyone from Larry Johnson to Scott Ritter, a number of different military experts on our show. I've spoken separately to members of NATO who've said, we are not prepared. Like, they will wipe us off the map with the types of weapons that they have compared to what we're using right now. Just look at the hypersonics that China has. So we're going to put aircraft carriers in the South China Sea? Goodbye. Like, we are not prepared for this. We are prepared for an asymmetrical war where these are replaceable, and we keep funneling money to these weapons contractors. So you might sit back and say, no, we're the biggest army in the world. No, we spend the most on it. Does that actually mean that we are prepared for a land war against Russia and China, or an invasionary force? Are you absolutely out of your mind?
Also, literally, China can turn your life off. Like right now, they can just reach in to your life and turn off your bank account. They can turn off your car. They can turn off your heater. They can turn, like, literally, they have some of the best hackers in the world. And so this war, right, will not stay on the battlefield. It is something that could affect us all. They can hack the elevator that you ride up to your office every day. They can have, like, literally everything. So it will not only be a war on the ground, it will be a cyber war. So it's not something that you can think like, oh, well, because war for so many people is put so far away from them. It's usually the lower, the middle class the middle and wealthier nations, they don't send their kids to war. So they don't suffer the sort of personal impact of it. And so, you can sort of put it aside like, well, yeah, some people will die. It won't affect my life. It will, right? And that's an awful way to feel. Although the economics of it now allow so many people this insulated safety net, and it's false. None of us are safe if this happens.
No, I mean, we are, again, on this show, we are vehemently anti-war. And, we have been pushing for peace from the very beginning. And interesting piece that came out today that was in the Marine Corps Gazette. So Moon of Alabama did a great job sort of dissecting this Marine Corps Gazette, I don't want to say like thesis or treatise of what happened, but this is spot on. So a lot of people in Western journalism were saying, Russia moved in and moved forces into Kiev, right? But they were also on the eastern side of Ukraine. So why were they coming towards Kiev, right? Why were they doing that? And then, of course, they suddenly disappeared, right? And we heard the bullshit stories about the ghost of Kiev, right? And they're repelling it. Ukraine is pushing them back, pushing them out of there. And Western media, CNN, others were all saying, see, this is an example. Ukraine is winning this war. They're pushing them out of Kiev. Well, now, according to a Marine who's writing about this at the Marine Corps Gazette, says that this was all part of the plan. It was a feint. It was a feint, meaning it was a fake move by the Russian army to move into Kiev and fake that they were going to invade Kiev, the capital, right? And instead, they used that to draw 100,000 forces from Ukraine towards that area. And what did they do while they were over there? They moved into eastern Ukraine and took all of the Donbass and Donetsk and all of that area that was under bombardment for the last 8 years, which is exactly, by the way, what Putin said was going to happen and what they laid out. And, again, straightforward. So this is a Marine writing this, but then Moon of Alabama does a great job. It's like must read. It's part of my daily reading at Moon of Alabama. Does a great job. And he says, Lambert Strather and Yves Smith at Naked Capitalism discuss a piece on the Russian operation in Ukraine that had been printed in the Marine Corps Gazette, all of which is a facsimile pictures, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I read the Gazette piece when it first appeared some weeks ago and found it excellent. It realistically depicts the early Russian move towards Kiev as a feint. This is also my view, he says. The feint, with too few troops to actually occupy Kiev, had a political and military purpose. Politically, it put pressure on the Ukrainian government to quickly agree to a Russian condition for a ceasefire. This nearly worked. This is an amazing piece of the story. This nearly worked. Why didn't it work? It didn't work because the UK sent Boris Johnson to make it not work and to talk down a peace agreement.
Well, he says here, speaking for Joe Biden, right?
Right.
So
Boris was speaking for Joe Biden.
Hand in hand, the two Western leaders are saying, we see that you've been going to Turkey and talking about a ceasefire. Don't do that. We're going to continue to support you until you actually take your country back altogether, which was always going to be fiction.
Militarily, he says, the feint had near perfect results. 100,000 Ukrainian troops mixed around Kiev, while Russian troops from Crimea moved nearly unopposed to the island via a land bridge to the Donbass, and Russia also grabbed a large foothold in Kherson and the west side of Dnieper. The hasty feint had a high price in the form of Russian casualties, but actually helped to establish front situations in the east and south that allowed for the mass destruction of Ukrainian forces with a minimum of casualties on the Russian side. So again, a move that basically was forcing Zelensky's hand towards peace until NATO gets involved and says, don't do it. We want this to be a forever war, and we want to use Ukraine as a proxy war battleground for the next 20 years, an endless Cold War.
I think that sort of makes sense when you think back to these. For instance, last month, the Wall Street Journal did a whole feature piece about how nightlife in Kiev is back. People are going to coffee shops again. It's as if the war raged through there and now everyone's good again. Russia kind of blew through and that was it. Well, if you look at this reporting and this sort of military strategy, it's like they never really were there. So this idea that the Ukrainians were victorious and have their city back is it's a false notion.
Right. But Western media jumped all over it, right? Western media was all like, look, this is, again, this is Ukraine winning. They're winning the hearts and minds, and they're repelling Russian forces. They forced them out. They forced them out of Kiev. So I think that this assessment by this U.S. Marine in this writing at the Gazette and the analysis by Moon of Alabama is spot on. And this actually is in alignment from what we've heard separately here on this show from military sources we've had here on this show. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this in the comments below. Let us know. But again, right now at this hour, just to kind of wrap this up, China ramping up military exercises again in Taiwan. Russia aligning itself, saying we're going to be handing out weapons to like-minded allies, both North Korea, Iran, and otherwise. And we're trying to solidify the currency around BRICS gold standard and away from this Western orthodoxy about how they measure gold. And we're also not going to fall in line with your unipolar order.
And validating their buds over in China, saying, yeah, we think what the United States is doing with Taiwan is bullshit. We're on your side, right? And so, it's interesting when someone says, we see your feelings are hurt. We agree with you, right? So now we know where the loyalties lie.
Well, we've got more news to get to here on the show. I should mention, please, all it takes for you to do is just smash that like button if we bring you any value at all. And if we don't, even if you just want to take out your frustration and you can't stand me or us, just, smash the like button.
Hit it hard.
Hit it hard, and then that way you'll really let your anger know. So please do that. It really helps us push out further into the algorithm because obviously this type of show gets suppressed all of the time. George Galloway.
And if you're agile enough, I was just going to say really quick, if you're agile enough, you can high kick it. You don't have to use your hands.
You can do a Karate Kid kick,
Yes.
on one foot if you can. A crane kick, yeah.
You guys should not say things like that because did you know that Oprah got sued because someone on her show said that you should put like lavender on a cloth and put it over a lamp to set a nice mood in your house, and someone had a fire in their house and sued the Oprah Winfrey Show because they thought that was good advice. So we're not saying anything like that. I don't want to get sued if you kick your computer. Our
audience is way smarter than that. I mean, if anyone, trust me, if you're the type of person that would kick your computer, then you shouldn't be watching.
Then you wouldn't be however many 20 minutes into a show like this.
You should be watching The Young Turks.
How many computers are actually touch screen anyway? I mean, come on.
They're kick screen.
Or kick screen.
Kick screen.
There was a string of memes a while back where they were sending them out and just like basically telling people things like, did you know you could like charge your phone in like a minute by putting it in the microwave? And so then they're like putting these out and like people were doing it, and it's like there's like getting people to microwave their phones and stuff like that.
My God.
It was crazy.
See, that's why we all have to be very careful with our words.
Yeah,
because
don't kick your laptop.
Don't do that. Oh, and also don't put cloths with lavender oil on your lamps.
Carol says Natalie is careful of everything.
Yes,
she is. I know. So stuff I wouldn't even think of. She's like, remember that time Oprah got sued? Yes.
Yeah.
You're very ginger. So I was going to mention. I don't know what I was going to mention, but I was going to say that coming up, we've got more news to get to. I was going to mention something about George Galloway, and I can't remember now. Something about him being shadow banned. He was talking about again, and now it's out of context. But sorry if I left that hanging out there, and people are wondering what was I going to say about that. We've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about eating bugs. This is the World Economic Forum's plan. It's actually coming together. You can find it in a lot of different food sources that you might be buying at your grocery store. We're going to show you some of the different grocery items that you might not even know you're eating bugs. It's in the ingredients now. This is all part of their plan to get you to stop eating meat and start eating bugs. We'll tell you about that. We're also going to look at Trudeau. We're going to go to Canada and look at the vaccine cover-up as it relates to mandates in Canada. Some new court documents are explosive, eye-opening. So we'll cover that.
Infuriating is more the word that I was going to use.
Yeah. So we're an equal opportunity. We cover the world here on the show. And we're going to also cover what's going on in Mexico. A lot of Americans moving to Mexico as well, with Biden inflation running hot. But first, I'll tell you about our friends over at Shopify. If you love that sound of that cash register ringing for a first sale, and if you've got an idea to launch your first store, an idea that you may have been kicking around for a while, like you love to, you love to paint, or you love to make certain kind of jewelry, or you can knit, and you want to launch a store, you want to be able to bring in some income. Look, Biden inflation is crushing Americans right now. It's happening in the UK as well. You're seeing it in Australia, you're seeing it in Canada. you can launch a store in just minutes on Shopify. Shopify is a platform designed for anyone to sell anywhere, giving entrepreneurs like ourselves the resources once reserved for big businesses to customize anything with a great looking online store that brings ideas to life, and you can manage day to day and drive sales in mere minutes. You can make your idea like open with endless possibilities, it's like a journey, and it grows with you. So as your store expands, the website expands, Shopify expands with you. Shopify powers millions of entrepreneurs just like our show, from full sale to full scale. Plus, with 24/7 support, you're never alone. More than a store, Shopify grows as your business grows. You want to add more items, it's very, very easy to do. If you want to customize certain colors or different things on the website, very easy to do. It's all right there. So what we want you to do is go to shopify.com/redacted, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial, and you'll get full access. If you just want to test it out and give it a try, see if you like it, see if this is something for you, go to shopify.com/redacted. You get access to all of their features, the entire suite of features for free for 14 days. You can start selling today on Shopify if you go to shopify.com/redacted. And you can, when you do that, you're supporting our show, you're supporting independent journalism, and you're supporting what we do here to bring you these stories every day. Again, shopify.com/redacted. Our thanks for, and by the way, I should say, our thanks to these companies who support our show. Like what with these guys, these types of companies that like Manscaped and Shopify and some of our great show sponsors that we have here, they've watched our show. They love what we do here. They stand for freedom of information, not censorship, and they stand with us. And so for that, you can feel good, I think, about going to those different companies. That's the way I feel about it anyway. So thanks to them.
Well, the World Economic Forum wants you to eat bugs, and you may already be eating bugs. So last year, the World Economic Forum posted this report telling all of us that we really need to embrace the role that insects can play in our food system. Now, some of the arguments that they made are that insects require much less feed and much less space and much less water to harvest. And so they sort of are a protein pack for their punch. Did I get that right? They're punch for the pack.
They're full of protein, and you need to move away from meat, right? This is part of the plan. It's better for the planet. We're going to move away from meat, and you're going to start eating bugs as a source of protein. Hey, really poor countries are doing this already in Africa. So why don't you, rich liberals on the coasts of America start eating bugs, right?
Well, they didn't say, anybody could be eating bugs, right? But it's sort of this new way to talk about like, oh, well, I'm self-sacrificing enough to try this new thing, right? Now, I am the kind of person who does not really abide picky eaters. Like if you are one of my children, there's no take it or leave it. There's a just take it, right? I don't like it when people sort of like, oh, I don't like that. I'm really quite mean about food.
Yeah, she is. Like if you're one of like the picky, like, oh, we can't go to this.
So-and-so doesn't eat this. And I'm like, so-and-so, you're going to.
Well, then so-and-so's not coming with us. Right. We're going to go have a delicious fish dinner tonight or whatever.
Yes. So I don't abide that kind of stuff, but I do sort of question. I want to take a pause before we all embrace this idea of eating bugs.
Okay, well, let's unpack this a little bit more here, because that was the report from the World Economic Forum last year. Now, I think we are watchdogs of the mainstream media here on this show, because Natalie and I spent many years in the mainstream media. I was a news anchor for almost 20 years. I worked at Fox News for the last 10 years of my life. I worked at NBC, CBS. I worked at all of them, right? In the last 10 years I spent at the network. And it was amazing to see these publications almost immediately after this report came out and then spread over a number of months. All of these like mainstream World Economic Forum publications just started printing news articles about it. All of these people who rub shoulders with these people. Here's an example. Why eat bugs? Like this was an article that was printed about it. Now you started to see all these new, here's The Guardian. If we want to save the planet, the future of food is insects, The Guardian wrote. By the way, how far has The Guardian fallen? What about the BBC? Could grasshoppers really replace beef, says the BBC? I could literally go on hundreds of articles. Here's Time Magazine. They're healthy. They're sustainable. So why don't humans eat more bugs? Great question, Time Magazine. Here's another one. This one is from, this is Forbes. Eating insects could cut your environmental impact by more than 80%, says a Finnish study, right? So now what's beautiful about...
Okay, but I want to put a pause on that number for a second. Okay,
maybe
all
we're
right.
on the same. Maybe we're on the same thing here. 80. So when I see a study like that, I always want to dig into like where do they get their funding, right? Where do these Finnish studies come from? Oh, does it, is it in part funded by the World Economic Forum or a subsidiary of the World Economic Forum that they basically bankroll these studies? So now we have a bunch of studies that are out there. Well,
Okay.
this study says that eating bugs is good.
But when people talk about reducing their environmental impact by their dietary choices, that doesn't mean that it reduces their entire environmental impact by 80%. It means it reduces your food-related environmental impact.
So what do you mean?
So, okay, an average person, right? Your environmental impact consists of all kinds of things. Your phone that you most of the energy of your phone comes from the manufacturing and the cell towers, not from plugging it in or using it really. Your phone, your car, right? Going to the grocery store, using your Wi-Fi, using water, whatever. Your food-related environmental impact is only about 10% of the average person's entire carbon footprint. So you might reduce by eating bugs or eating vegetarian or whatever, you will reduce your 10% to maybe 5%. Or in this case, if eating bugs is going to reduce your environmental impact by 80%, then that means it's really only reducing your environmental impact down to 2%. It's only taking 80% off the 10%. Do you see what I'm saying?
I didn't know that there was going to be math on tonight's show.
So what I'm saying is that your dietary habits, no matter who you are, only really account for about 10% of your footprint. So no dietary choices can reduce your overall...
So if you're vegan, you're like, I'm a good person, I'm vegan.
Right? You're only reducing your impact of the 10% that is food related, is what I'm saying, according to the research by Bjorn Lundberg.
Okay. So then if you're vegan, you're like, I'm doing great for the earth. Okay, then also let's talk about the phone that you're using. Let's talk about...
then you should not have a phone.
The only thing that would maybe, okay, you in the clothes that you're getting, whatever, you should just wear a burlap sack. Like if you literally are vegan and you like sleep in a burlap sack, then maybe then you can be a little bit more sanctimonious. Am I right?
You know what I want to say?
Am I right?
I feel sorry sorry for the country where the bugs that we're going to like the most, like let's say all of a sudden Americans all want Madagascar hissing cockroaches on their sandwiches. Watch out, Madagascar, because we are coming for you.
Oh,
Right.
you say Madagascar. Yeah. I've got a little nugget. I've got a little chicken. I've got a little cockroach nugget about Madagascar in a moment. So that's exactly where one of the areas.
Well, I'm not saying you should not be a vegetarian. I'm saying that you should not throw around this being a vegetarian reduces your footprint by 50%. It does not. It's only your food related footprint. So the same has to be said of bugs. So even if you can reduce your footprint by 80%, it's only your food related footprint, right?
Well,
Yes.
not necessarily, because let's say you are going to the grocery store now and you have an environmental footprint of your gasoline use or whatever, but you start getting the bugs in your backyard, you don't have to go anywhere. So it could lessen the footprint of your travel and things like that. So it could have a little bit more of an impact, but you would have to be very...
But you're assuming you serve no bugs with accoutrement, right?
Meaning condiments?
Like you're not going to fry it in oil. You have the oil, you have the salt, you have the everything that
I'm
goes
just
with
going out in
it.
the yard, grabbing bugs and...
And this is your whole diet.
Right. He's like Gilligan.
If that's where we got to go, if that's saving the planet, I'm in.
This is okay. I don't think that's what we're talking about.
Says the man that's on the carnivore diet. So yeah, not going to happen. But I just want to kind of, that's a great point about the numbers. That's a great point about so when people see these numbers, as Bjorn Lundberg points out, like you got to question this, right? That's our point of our show, question everything. But also the other side of this is when you see these studies, well, this Finnish study tells us this. Yeah, well, where did the money come from for this study? Who's funding these studies? It's like Coca-Cola funding that sugar is okay for you studies, right? Oh, this study comes to us from Coca-Cola. So always question these things. Make sure you ask where the sources are.
There's a bug lobby now?
Most likely.
Yes.
I bet there is.
So here's the bug lobby, right? So we saw all the publications falling in lockstep immediately with this World Economic Forum, and it's been growing and growing and growing. And now manufacturers are also including it in their foods, which we'll get to in a moment. And you might have already been eating them and not even known about it because you haven't read the ingredients. But a number of celebrities now and mainstream media are getting on board with this. They're doing segments about it. They're normalizing this idea that we should all be eating bugs to save the planet. Here's just a roundup on of a group of celebrities, like from Nicole Kidman to Salma Hayek, eating bugs. Watch this.
Want to share a spider?
Can I make one without
Oh.
It's actually really good, the flavor.
One ones. They're still alive. Extraordinary.
It's ants. Yeah. The answer is really good.
These are crickets from Mexico, from Oaxaca.
Yeah, that's Salma Hayek. So she's eating crickets, right? And so crickets.
Actually, my sister says in Mexico they eat crickets pretty regularly. Like that's already part of their cuisine.
Okay, great.
That's why you don't. That's why when you're in Mexico, you do not hear this sound.
There's no crickets at night.
Okay,
they're eating them all.
Are like, yeah.
So,
don't make noise,
because they're coming for us. So again, that was just the celebrities. Now, and also you had this on CNN. So CNN doing segments about this. Watch.
You ready?
Cheers.
Actually, I'm less scared of this. Okay. Oh, the crunch. Do I have a wing hanging out of my mouth?
See, this is all
Why do you
normal
need to
now.
eat that with gloves?
Right,
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
if it's. And then the other day, I saw this on the Late Show, the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. You had Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, who is now pushing this. So we've been seeing this like protein drink, like cricket protein drink, right? And sure enough, and there you go, like he's on there hawking this protein drink. Listen.
This is a powder derived from the mealworm, and it's a insect protein just been approved by the EU for human consumption. The making of it is severely reducing the amount of emissions it takes. If we make this switch, it's a huge intervention.
Oh, it's a huge intervention
So
in the
from
planet.
Iron Man to Protein Man.
Right. I mean, and you see it, right? I just want people to be aware when they're watching this show that when you see something like this coming from the World Economic Forum, and then you suddenly start seeing publications from The Atlantic to all the articles we just showed you, Forbes, all of these things, they're all suddenly printing articles about this kind of crap.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they get money or they're involved in this somehow, right? So when people say, oh, this is a conspiracy theory level stuff, it's not, because now it's showing up in food, which we'll get to. I saw someone in the chat just saying, what about chittens, right? So this is...
I think it might be called chitons, but I'm not sure.
So there's a problem.
Chitons.
Chitons. Okay.
Oh.
We'll ask our molecular biologist on staff, Philip, who is. So chitons. So can you tell us about these chitons? And then I have a soundbite I want to play about the problem with this stuff.
Yes, in fact. So chitons, thank you, Philip, for that, are something that are in most insects and have been known to be an allergy-promoting pathogen. This, according to the journal, the Clinical Reviews and Allergy and Immunology. Can you put that on the screen, Philip? So you can see that it is being researched and has been shown to have a potential allergy-promoting pathogen that can have a negative response on the human immune system through inflammation.
So let's play a little sound of exactly how this reacts in the body, basically as a toxin. Listen.
It's been shown contain a substance called chitin. There's a meme going around. You sort of see this stuff and you think, oh, is this fear-mongering? Is this true? But I've looked into it and it's actually true, folks. There's a lot of evidence that insects contain chitins. Chitins are very, very bad for humans. Chitins cause all sorts of problems, asthma, respiratory problems, all the things we're seeing from the jab. It also causes this thing called Glioblastoma, which is a spinal cancer, comes from chitins, and chitins cannot be cooked out of insects. There's no processing that will take these substances out of the insects. When you eat the insects, you are eating chitins. Chitins cannot be processed by the human body. You know, we don't eat insects, folks. You know, birds, chickens, lizards, reptiles, these things eat insects. Fish eat insects. We don't eat insects. We don't have the digestive system to be able to process certain things that are found in insects, such as chitins. And like I said, they can't be processed out. They cannot be cooked out. They are always there. So if you're eating little
now, Bjorn Lomborg
snacks or eating insect.
In his book, Bjorn Lomborg talks about how a lot of countries, they do eat, either they are vegetarian or they eat insects, but that is out of necessity. And as you see countries become wealthier, they stop that and they eat sort of what you and I would recognize as meat. Philip, do you want to ring in on that pathology piece or his pronunciation of chitin? Is that okay?
Yeah,
with you?
his pronunciation was it was because it was I think it's the British pronunciation. At least when I learned it was chitin. So
okay.
I admit that I could be wrong. I'm not.
And what did you learn about it?
Well, what I know about them, that's usually found in the insect shell. It's actually also found in certain because I'm actually allergic to chitin, and so I have an allergy to most mushrooms, and so like getting thrown, I have to watch anytime I'm buying, like if I'm buying a vegan meat substitute, I have to look for mycoprotein written on it because they won't put mushrooms. So I also need to find like what they secretly call bugs if they're going to start throwing them in there because I know that I actually am allergic to chitin.
Wow. According to this allergy, a lot of it is over my head because it's an allergy publication, but it did say that it's sort of on par with dust mite allergies.
Yeah. And we also have some foods that we wanted to show here. These are actual foods that you can find in the store that already have this in it. You might not even know that you're eating this crap. So a doctor, Dr. Sean Baker, a doctor on Twitter, pointed out that his sustainable cheese puffs have cricket flour in it as one of the main ingredients. Okay. In fact, the parent company Actually Foods says it's on a mission to make cricket-based foods the first choice for individuals interested in high-quality, sustainable protein. You can see it there, cricket flour. So now you can eat cricket flour. And
I just want to say, I don't think there is a healthier way to eat cheese puffs. Like any kind of puffed carbohydrate is going to spike your insulin.
What about a cheese ball? Like when you would go to like Walmart, when you go to Walmart and you get one of those giant things of cheese balls.
Whether it has bugs or not, you should not. I'm not telling you what not to eat, but you should not delude yourself that there's a healthier way to do that.
Because those cheese balls come from a cheese ball tree. So I'm totally fine eating that.
Is that the case?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another protein bar that you can get. This one is a Exo protein bar made from the skeleton. So this one, Philip, you probably would not be able to eat because it has chitin in it, right? Hunter Becken, which Exo
Correct.
protein savory meal bar should I consume? I love this. This is like an influencer, right? Hey, Hunter Becken, which Exo protein savory meal bar should I consume first? Is it the barbecue, the Mediterranean, or the mango curry?
Now, we poke fun, but it's not like we don't collectively want a food source that is better for the planet. Of course we want that, right? And that is going to take innovation. And this is one form of innovation, is looking towards bugs. Sure. Is this the form that's going to save the planet? I don't know,
Phil,
right?
do you have that
I'm not thrilled about it.
Philip, do you have that B-roll that I put in here of this? I forgot to label it, but I showed the processing of these bugs. I didn't put it in the craft, but I don't know if we have it or not.
I didn't find it in there.
But anyway, they show the processing of these Madagascar crickets, and they're putting them through like a meat grinder, grinding them up into like a pulp.
Alive?
No, they're dead, and then they put them into an oven, which they're then cooking into a cracker, and then the cracker, then you put they roll them up with like some kind of cheese. So you're eating like this cricket crushed cracker that's what's going to be your healthy Triscuit from now on.
My question is, you can't slaughter crickets in the same way you do like a mammal, right? And so how do you mass slaughter something that's tiny in order to process it without chemicals, right? Because, my father is a landscape contractor, and anytime he sees, like, we have something in the garden, he's like, use some chemicals. I'm like, no, Dad, no pesticides, right? So most of the industry in the Western world is going towards preventing these things from living. So now we're saying that there's another strain of them that has not been affected by all of the chemicals we leash on them. Mm-hmm. That's not the right word. We unleash on them, right? And that these are okay to eat. But are we going to then like mass them live, or how do we kill something that's so small in mass quantity without chemicals? I have a lot of questions. I still have a lot of questions.
Yeah, and also it's like we always see what they do. They go in and they make these decisions, and then they go mass do this stuff, and they don't think. It's like when they removed the wolves from Yellowstone Park. It's like once they the erosion started happening, the deer population got out of control, and there's probably keystone bugs as well. I mean, look at bees. Look how important bees are to our whole life. Everything that we eat and everything. The bees are so important, and they don't think about the blowback of like mass killing a certain bug because we're going to eat it or whatever. So I think the repercussions of this, I think the only solution is if they just give us all spears and stuff again, and we go out and we hunt our own food, we grow our own vegetables, and they don't even have grocery stores anymore, and we're just every man for himself.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's saying, like, the innovation.
That's the only sustainable.
Anthony in the chat says they use a big ass bug zapper.
Right. It's just constantly going off.
That's
you're like sitting there like starving, and you're just waiting to hear that sound. Oh my gosh, lunch.
Maybe we can get the military-industrial complex on this, because I know that's how they would love to figure this out. They would love to be able to get some
I just can't wait to meet
money.
Can't wait to meet my first cricket farmer. Like, so what do? I'm a cricket farmer. Like,
for eating.
For eating. I mean, I bet go to like Madagascar and you'd absolutely find them there. That's exactly what they're doing.
You got to think about it. Those people would be like, you'd walk up to their house and they'd be insane because all they hear is that cricket noise all day long. They're like,
It'd be like tinnitus, or maybe they would just like block it out, right?
Right.
I'm gonna actually, I might look into that, because I might become one of the like 17-year cicada farmers, and then I'll just like do a bit of work 1 year and then take 16 years off.
Yeah.
I'm down. Yeah. There you go.
I'm gonna sell 25-year-old Madagascar hissing cockroaches, like aged bugs.
Aged, yeah. Like a fine aged bug, and that's coming. That's coming. Oh yeah. By the way, that CNN that CNN clip that we showed, that was one of those 17-year cicadas. That's what she was eating. And they were talking about, like, you can eat them as well, like prepare them because they're here. It's a delicacy. Eat them. 17 years. You can eat them every 17 years.
I don't want to act like I'm above it. I'm not.
You don't have to apologize for everything.
I have a lot of questions.
We are on the same, we should be questioning this. Like, it's not, there's a reason it creeps us out. Yeah. Right? We have an innate feeling that we're creeped out by eating bugs. Like when a bug enters your mouth, you don't want to eat it. Right?
That's true.
Right?
Like when I'm riding my bicycle and a bug flies in my mouth. I don't enjoy it.
Like we have babies, right? When a baby pops out, they have like a baby pops out in a pool, right? You ever see that, like a woman giving birth, like in a pool, and the baby like starts swimming.
Yeah.
And then isn't it amazing? Like there's innate, right? It's the same thing. Like if you ever took if I was a baby, if you just took like a little piece of like pepperoni and just kind of waved it in front of a baby's face, that baby's eyes are going to light up.
Actually, my sister, when she was a baby, my mom sprayed a spider with Raid and sprayed the shit out of it. So the spider was like frozen with Raid, and my sister crawled over and put it in her mouth.
That explains.
And my mom had to call poison control and almost gagged. And she was like, give it up, spiders.
Don't use.
So don't eat bugs with Raid, first of all.
No. So I did this on Facebook this morning. I said, whenever there's a big story in the media, look for the story they're trying to distract you from. And so when I see all these companies and all these different things happening and all these people getting on board and mass talking about this stuff, I start, what is it they're actually trying to do? Why are they making this move?
Yeah.
There's got to be an answer somewhere. We might not know what it is yet, but something is going on because so many are getting on board with it.
Yeah, well, it's the World Economic Forum, buddy, and they're pushing this agenda to. And by the way, when all of this hit, right, we suddenly started seeing a higher tax on meat, like the meat tax. The meat tax, and all of these articles started hitting about why we should eat bugs. That's our new protein source. Let's include it into our different protein meal bars. So you're going to see more of this. We've got more news to get to here on the show. We do indeed. We're going to be talking about Justin Trudeau in just a few moments about what these vaccine documents revealed in a new court filing. These are stunning. You want to pay attention to the dictator from the north. This has broad implications, and maybe we'll even see more lawsuits around the world as it relates to the vaccine and some of the cover-up. We're also going to talk about this. I did that menstruation. Do you see that?
Got it.
Menstruation. Genius. So there's a story about a man who's now going to be heading up the basically teaching women about sanitary products and their menstruation. It's a new basically government position, and instead of putting a woman in charge of it, they chose a man for the first ever position because it's 2022 and that's where we're at. Mm-hmm. We have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, buckle up for that. Well, if you don't want to eat bugs, but you would like to add a lot of nutrition into your life, we're going to tell you about our friends over Athletic Greens. Now, this is a product we actually use in our house.
Every day.
Every day. Clayton puts it in his smoothies. He makes this weird choice where he actually puts the Athletic Greens in with peanut butter. I don't think that's a good mix.
Don't judge me.
He does. Yeah,
Don't judge me.
He puts chocolate powder and peanut butter with his Athletic Greens. I think they don't belong with peanut butter. They are great on their own with just a banana in a smoothie, but whatever. You can try it. You also could add this cricket powder if you're game for that, but you don't have to because they are filled with vitamins and nutrients. With just one scoop, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend called AG1 is ingredients that support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy. It helps with recovery, focus, and aging, all these things, right? It's lifestyle friendly. Tons of people take this no matter what diet you're on, keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It also serves as a great multivitamin. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar with high-quality ingredients that your body really likes. No nasty chemicals, no GMOs, nothing like that. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D, plus 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/invest. That's our show's code, so you are investing in yourself. Once again, that's athleticgreens.com/invest to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
That's awesome. Yes, I love my Athletic Greens, and I do put a scoop. You can do it without anything. You could just do it in water, which is what I usually do too. 12 ounces of water, shake it up, and it's delicious. You don't even have to add anything with it. So
yeah, Clayton he likes to mix it up.
That's my lunch. So I'm like, I'll throw it in there with my lunch, and then that's my smoothie lunch.
Sometimes a banana,
Go crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. So be sure to subscribe. How many of you are subscribed to the channel? If you're subscribed, your name will pop right up here on the screen. So if you subscribe, it'll pop right up here, should behind us. And also, youtube.com/redacted news is how you can subscribe to the channel. And we're nearing 1 million subscribers here on the channel. So this is very, very exciting. Thank you all for your support of what we do here, covering these stories that you largely won't see in the mainstream media. Sorry, I just had to do a computer reboot here. So just give me 1 second.
You want me to talk? I'll talk.
No, I don't. Sorry, just joking. So welcome. Okay, let's head north of the border up to Canada, shall we? Where we've been covering Canadian dictator Justin Trudeau. His administration from the outset has been clamping down on personal freedoms since he took office. And there's been a lot of slippage, right? This has been happening under his regime for quite a while, and he's continuing to take away personal freedoms. This all came, of course, to a head during the winter when Canada's truckers were told to get the vaccine or else they wouldn't be able to cross borders in order to do their jobs.
Or deliver any goods and services, right?
Right. So they revolted, right? They said, no thanks. And it was really a moment, right? We see now how that reverberated across the world, the Canadian truckers. The government took their bank accounts If you set up a GoFundMe page to help support any of them, those were taken down. GoFundMe stepped in thanks to the Canadian government. Like, it was crazy. Social media accounts, fake propaganda from the government. This was Justin Trudeau's government that did all of this. Trudeau told us, of course, that it was all due to science that we were putting these vaccine mandates in place. It was all science, right? We're going to listen to the science.
Every time we saw him speak out about these mandates when he was facing pressure about them, he said, I'm not even going to talk to anyone who's not following the science, right? We're following the science. That's why we're doing these things. And so we don't even want to abide or hear anyone who's doing anything but, right?
Yeah.
But a new lawsuit shows us that, in fact, they had no science when they were making rules. They made the rules and then waited around for some science that was convenient for them.
I'm going to try that around the house. I'm going to make some rules, and then I'm going to just wait for, I don't know, I'm going to wait for science.
You know what? I can't put Eve to bed anymore because I have, my doctor said it's bad for my back.
Yes.
Oh, when did you go to the doctor? I'm going to. I will be.
I'm going to find a medical journal that says, putting my kids to bed at night is bad for me.
It's bad for my anxiety.
Right.
And I can find a doctor to say that, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to find the science. I'm going to do just like Justin Trudeau and find the science. So here was Justin Trudeau, just a little flashback, talking specifically about why there's this push for vaccines and how, like, you need to be a good Canadian. You need to fall in line because the science is there. Listen.
There are Canadians who still continue to choose to not get vaccinated. It's fellow Canadians as well. When people are seeing cancer treatments and elective surgeries put off because beds are filled with people who chose not to get vaccinated, they're frustrated. When people see that we're in lockdowns or serious public health restrictions right now because the risk posed to all of us by unvaccinated people get angry. And we have put forward many, many different measures to encourage, to reassure, to incentivize, to educate, to cajole, to remind people that it's never too late to do the right thing. It's never too late to go and get your first dose of vaccine. I can tell you that frontline health worker who's giving you your first dose of the vaccine, even now in January 2022, will be immensely pleased to be able to give you that first dose of vaccine even today. Because they'd much rather be giving you an injection of vaccine than intubating you in an ICU.
Yeah. The gray zone. Max Blumenthal has some excellent reporting about Nicaragua and the differences here and why they were able to have chemo treatments, deal with cancer, deal with heart patients, totally unrelated to COVID and their hospitals. Why? Because they didn't close down. They didn't lock down. And by the way, the mandates, lockdowns led to this these nut cases. That's why we had this, right?
These delays which are still in place. In fact, one of our mutual friends, Amber MacArthur, has been talking about how
she's in Canada. Yeah,
she's in Canada. She's a Canadian journalist and had a mammogram, which required some follow-up procedures that are timely, and she still can't get in until the late fall. I mean, it's August, right?
Crypto Nation says the intubation was the problem all along. Yes, exactly. Read Peter McCullough's great book. I had him on the show. We did a redacted conversation. It's available on Rumble. We couldn't even play it here on YouTube. It's a full hour-long discussion with Peter McCullough. Go to our Rumble channel and watch that interview. And the intubation is the problem. You're absolutely right. So not just truckers, of course, were all in all this. Trudeau demanded all federal government employees would be subject to a vaccine mandate. Further, he said no later than the end of October, he said at the time. A vaccine mandate for travelers would also be implemented. Again, all in the name of science, he said. We're following the science at every turn. And if you don't believe in vaccine mandates, then you're a racist, he told Canadians in French. Listen.
Oui,
On va s'en sortir de cette pandémie par la vaccination. Puis on en connaît tous des gens qui sont en train d'hésiter un petit peu. On va continuer d'essayer de les convaincre. Mais il y a aussi des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination.
Qui sont extrémistes.
Qui croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. C'est un petit groupe, mais qui prend de la place. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère ces gens-là ou est-ce qu'on dit, ben voyons, la plupart des gens, presque 80% des Québécois ont fait ce qu'il fallait faire, se sont fait vacciner, on veut revenir aux choses qu'on aime faire. C'est pas ces gens-là qui vont nous bloquer maintenant.
Yeah. So they're racist.
So we
They're
as a government, do we
extremists.
tolerate these people?
These
Do we,
racists.
like-
What does that have to do with getting... You're racist because you don't want to get a vaccine?
I don't know.
I mean, this is the kind of craziness. You throw this around. It's ridiculous. Well, now, thanks to this big lawsuit, the truth is being revealed. Journalist Rupa Subramanya broke this story on Barry Weiss's Common Sense publication. She's done some amazing reporting on this. Do you want to kind of go through some of the main points here?
Okay, so two Canadian men decided that they did not want to receive the COVID vaccine, and they were both really upset for the travel mandates that said that you could not travel in and out of Canada without a vaccine. One of them is British and said he couldn't go and see his mother. Neither of them had any kind of like real losses about it, but they both felt so passionately that this was a removal of their rights that they felt like this would only be solved through litigation. So what they did was they sued the Canadian government for the mandates that were put in place. And through this lawsuit, they've been able to see exactly what happened and how the government came up with these decisions to put mandates in place. So some things that have come up in the case you might see is that, do we have the screen that I shot for?
Well, let's set this up with Rupa because
Okay.
I want to give her due. Anytime we have a good journalist who is independent, who's doing great work, I want to highlight her work. And so this is Rupa explaining a little bit of this lawsuit in a little bit more detail here. Listen to Rupa.
On August 2nd, I broke a story for Barry Weiss's Common Sense where I report on recently released court documents relating to a case challenging the federal travel vaccine mandate. These documents make it abundantly clear that the mandate was not motivated by the science.
So it wasn't motivated by the science. And let's meet one of the individuals before we get to your full screens here. One of the plaintiffs, Carl Harrison, 58 years old. He said he and his partner Emma had emigrated in 2009 from Britain to Canada. He was stunned to watch politicians just reading off of prepared talking points during this hearing. Like he was sitting there, and for days they had to do this cross-examination. So when the lawyers were asking the politicians about the science, and the vax, they were literally reading off prepared remarks, and he kept 30 questions just to get one answer. They just kept reading from these cards and just these talking points over and over again, these BS talking points. And he describes the scientists sitting there finally getting to speak for the first time, felt like a weight had been lifted off these scientists' shoulders. Listen to him.
Just on but the politicians like Jennifer Little and the others, evasive, trying to use talking points rather than answers. And like we watched Sam, probably use 20 questions or 30 questions to actually get to an answer. And you probably read that when the same talking point that, and Jennifer Little was obviously very well schooled in that. And you see that through all levels of the Liberal government. You see that in Parliament, people reading from cards, talking points that are pre-written as answers to questions that they expect to get. Disappointment, but no surprises with the political witnesses. Some elements of frankness amongst the scientists where you could sense maybe some of them were getting something off their chest under oath.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
Interesting. That's a very interesting comment.
Yeah, it is to hear that these politicians just reading from prepared remarks prepared by the Trudeau government on how to handle this question, right?
But when you dig into what actually took place as the mandates were being discussed by the people who had the power to implement them and who those people were and how they came about these decisions, it's quite shocking. So a couple of things that the court documents include that were discovered in this lawsuit. First of all, that no one in the COVID recovery unit, including Jennifer Little, who he just mentioned, who was one of the main decision makers about the vaccine mandates for travel, had any formal education in epidemiology, medicine, or public health. Okay.
Okay.
That's not awesome. Little, who had an undergraduate degree in literature from the University of Toronto, testified that there were 20 people in the unit. And when she was pushed, they said, well, did any of them have professional experience in public health? She said there was one person who was a civil servant who briefly worked for a public health agency of Canada. She wasn't a doctor or at all. They said that she was... so anyway, this person did confirm that she was that she was not a doctor, but was on that team. Let's see, the term cabinet confidence, the fourth bullet down, is noteworthy because it refers to the prime minister's cabinet, meaning that Little could not talk about who had directed the COVID recovery unit to impose this travel mandate. So, they're using a lot of sort of governmental protection. But when there were emails that came out between Little and some of the other people inside this COVID recovery unit, this email came out where this woman, let's see, Lumi Mailari, is an official in the Public Health Agency of Canada. And this email exchange, she seems to be casting about for a credible rationale for the travel mandate. So she says this is less than 2 weeks before the mandate was set to kick in. And she writes this email and says, to the extent that updated data exists or that there is clear evidence of the safety benefit of vaccination on the user or other stakeholder of the transportation system, it'd be helpful to assist Transport Canada for supporting its measures, meaning we need some data to prove that this is actually going to help people. So we're going to do it. Can anyone give us some science behind why to do it, right? 4 days later, on October 22nd, McCrory emailed again saying, our requirements come in on October 30th, just over a week, so need something fairly soon. We're looking for science to validate this mandate we are about to impose on an entire country. Anybody? Bueller?
No.
Bueller?
Of course, this is exactly what they did in the United States as well, right? I mean, this sort of massaging of public policy to sort of fit your government's moves to try to clamp down and consolidate power and to take people off the streets, closing businesses, forcing mandates on people. We still see these mandates. Lloyd Austin, by the way, this is a good question, right? The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, got COVID a second time last night, right? Mm-hmm. Here's a guy who literally is forcing people out of a job because they won't get vaccines.
Yeah.
The CDC changes its guidelines yesterday, right? So that vaccinated and unvaccinated are now treated the same, according to the CDC. Good question, right? Lloyd Austin, second round of COVID, all these people fired in the military.
And discharged without honors, meaning they don't get their pension. Those people should get their pension.
Right.
Now,
can you smell a lawsuit?
Let's circle back around to that.
Again, maybe we'll start to see a massive lawsuit. And I would hope like there's like some massive class action lawsuit that can maybe come together and force their hand.
It's equivalent to all the non-violent drug offenders, the marijuana offenders that are still in prisons. Like they tend to like not understand what that's done to their entire life. Like these people's lives were changed because of this, and we never end up going back and taking care of those people. It's like, we already screwed them. We'll deal with the future. Let's just leave them. They're like the collateral damage.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard asked Kamala Harris about that during a debate. Remember that? When Kamala Harris, Tulsi Gabbard ripped her apart. This was probably the moment that she lost the race.
So good.
And she said, all of the people who are put away for many, many years because of a marijuana offense, right? And you prosecuted those and went to great lengths to keep those people behind bars. And then you laughed about and talked about when you openly used marijuana, and you laughed about it as if it's just a side joke. Is it a joke to the people that are locked up for many, many years. You take away their livelihoods. I mean, we can draw sort of like a metaphor for what's happened with COVID for these people. But again, come back to these tale of two different countries where you have a country like Nicaragua. And again, just watch Max Blumenthal's reporting on this about a country that was left open and people were able to get chemo treatments. They were able to see their family. And the opposite is the case in Canada.
Yeah.
And freedom.
Well, and I even used the Amish. We showed that Amish video, or I showed you, where the Amish community, they let it go in. They didn't vaccinate. They didn't social distance. They spent time with their loved ones, and they reached herd immunity, and it was all good. Like they were just, their lives did not even change due to this.
Yeah, exactly. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. We've got more news we're going to get to here on the show. We're going to talk about what's coming up with Mexico and why the United States, why so many Americans are leaving and going to Mexico to find a better way of life. And we're also going to talk about the new man who's in charge of teaching you, ladies, about your monthly visit to, is there a term like your monthly, there
are many terms. Yes, I'm enjoying
the visit
this.
from Aunt Flo.
The visit from right.
That's an old one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be
your monthly bill.
I'm trying to show you that I don't really know, how it works. So why is a man put in charge of teaching women about this?
I prefer goddess days. I take your goddess days.
All right. We'll get to that in a moment. You're going to want to stick around for that.
This is a great story. I won't tell you what my dad said. My dad used to say.
Yeah, please don't.
It's not bad, but it's.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there. Hold it, Aunt Flo. First, my fellow Americans, if you have an IRA, you've got a 401k or a savings account, things are scary out there. We are heading for a massive recession. The data is in, guys, and all signs are pointing to a major recession. If you read Zero Hedge this afternoon, you'll see where the signs are pointing us, both in the labor market and on the consumer price index, and where CPI and where consumers are spending money right now. It's not. They're pulling back significantly. So the national debt hit $30 trillion. The inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. Biden's passing his Inflation Reduction Act, which economists agree is not going to do anything to reduce inflation. And he's on vacation, by the way, right now. It's only a matter of time before this house of cards comes crashing down. If you have a retirement or savings right now, your money, if it's tied to government currency, could be in big trouble. That's why our friends over at Goldco want you to check them out and go to their website, and you'll get a free report on gold. If you go to redactedlikesgold.com, sign up. They're going to give you $10,000 or more in free silver, actual physical silver, with a qualifying account. So go check them out, redactedlikesgold.com. It's a free report, and then see if it's right for you. Taking some of the money that you've got in savings, which is government currency, and converting it to gold or silver. I'm telling you, even if it's a small portion of your savings, to protect your family. Gold is expected to hit upwards of $2,500 an ounce. Vladimir Putin this afternoon made the announcement that they want to move to their own gold standard, where they would value an ounce of gold today at $2,400 an ounce. Think about that for a second. Right now, an ounce of gold is about $1,800 an ounce. Putin is saying, no, we believe the value is actually $2,400 an ounce. So again, you see where the goalposts are, right? And you see where things are moving. Go towards this right now. Again, redactedlikesgold.com. Get $10,000 in free silver when you open a qualifying account. Our friends at Goldco are there to thank you. Thank you so much for them. And thanks to all of you for subscribing. We know you don't have to. We know you have other things you could be doing with your time. We really appreciate that you've spent it with us, learning about what's going on in the world and questioning everything that is being presented to you in the mainstream media.
All right. Well, you know how President Trump wanted to build a wall to prevent illegal immigration going into the United States. That wall perhaps will be needed to start preventing immigration going the other way, because Americans are actually fleeing to Mexico in record numbers.
Yeah, this is really stunning. I mean, we've been talking about this here on the show over the past couple of months. Americans going there to find their retirement villa and that sort of thing. Now it's not just old people going there, people at retirement age or older who are saying, I'm just going to live out my sunny days here in Mexico. No, it's young people who now know that they can work remotely or are sick and tired of working for these American companies in San Francisco and Atlanta and all over the United States. It's not just California. And they're going to Mexico in droves. CNN just did a whole piece on this, and it's actually amazing that CNN's actually been covering this story. Watch some of this.
A refuge for migrants.
I grew up in New York. LA. Atlanta, Georgia.
Perhaps not the border crossing you expected. Americans leaving pricey U.S. cities, heading south to work from home in Mexico City.
It is starting to feel like home. I've been here for several months already.
Born and raised in the U.S., Eric Rodriguez hardly speaks Spanish and admits he's not here to rediscover his Mexican roots so much as to save money.
In San Diego, my apartment was probably $2,500. For one bedroom? For studio. For studio. Here, I have a one bedroom and I pay $800 a month.
The State Department says 1.6 million U.S. citizens live in Mexico, but they don't say how many are living and working there on tourist visas. The Mexican government does not track that data either, but they recorded more than 5.3 million American tourists flying in during just the first 5 months of this year.
Whoa.
Nearly a million more than that same period in 2019.
Now, that's before the pandemic.
Yes.
You know, so that's before, those are pre-pandemic numbers.
Right. And it's not just for vacation, right? So although during the pandemic, if you went to the IATA travel site, which lists all travel requirements for every country in the world, Mexico was the only one of the very few who had no COVID restrictions for entry, even during the heart of the pandemic. So it became this place where people knew that they could go for, freely,
right,
for travel, but also to stay for longer periods of time.
So this afternoon, President Biden, is expected to sign the Inflation Reduction Act, which raises taxes on Americans making less than $400,000 a year. So this is, of course, something that the Biden administration is lying about, because on the campaign trail, do you recall President Biden specifically saying, we will not raise taxes on any American making less than $400,000 a year? I remember that. I remember him saying that.
Yes.
Well, he just violated that, and they're going to lie about it, but that's actually what this does in this Reduction Act.
Well, I can't remember. There was a congressman or senator that tried to propose an amendment to that to say, we want it in writing that you will not go after people making less than $400,000. It needs to be in the bill, and they refused to put it in there.
Of course. Right? Read my lips, no new taxes. It's a thing that cost George H.W. Bush the presidency, right? You don't ever say these things if you're a politician, because it always comes back to bite you in the ass, because that's what politicians do.
Or, well, they think we're too stupid to remember.
Right. And now with, we have these things called cameras, like video camera, like VHS tapes.
Yes.
Like we can record it with our VHS tapes, and we can then play it back to see if he said that stuff.
Yeah.
That's how this stuff works.
Kevin said it was signed about an hour ago.
Oh, it was signed. Okay, yeah. So it was expected to happen this afternoon. So yes, thank you, Kevin. So the average American is paying hundreds of dollars more to live the same way that they were just 2 years ago. Right now, they're calling it Biden inflation, because this is a self-made inflationary move by the United States. It's self-made. It's man-made, and we had all control over it, and we screwed up. And this is no one else to blame right now but the Biden administration and the Federal Reserve. Here's how Fox News played it up, talked about the $700.17 is the average American is what they're paying per month, more now than they were before. Listen.
A few items from the grocery store, I'm still racking up like $200 bills, and yet I have like two meals to make for dinner.
I noticed the prices when I was at checkout. Prices were ridiculous.
Groceries are all up. Gas is up. Water bill, electric bill, everything.
As a parent, you want to buy the 25-cent folder. You can't find them. So you have to spend $1 something on a folder. The inflation is on our items, but not in our pocket.
Well, everyday Americans certainly feeling the heat of inflation, while a new report reveals that inflation is costing the average American $717 a month.
$717.
So, you can't blame Americans for looking for a place where they don't think these prices will go up to that extent, right? The problem is that people who already live in Mexico then will get inflation from Americans coming in and driving up the price of things such as
real estate,
cost of living, real estate, that kind of thing. Also, Eric Suarez, thank you for that super chat, points out that there, is a problem with violence in the border states, especially due to not just the drug cartel anymore. Avocados are a new drug cartel. These things are a concern. And these Americans who are escaping America will still have to pay taxes on that income. You cannot leave America and not pay taxes. They won't pay a state tax.
I wonder how many
still will. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I wonder how many Americans are going to, what's the word?
Expatriate. Or I wonder how many of them know that, right? So there's a couple questions I have, because this Inflationary Act will indeed beef up the IRS. The IRS is aware that you may be living abroad, but you need to file taxes. They do go after expatriates who live abroad. Absolutely, they do that, right? They're getting all these new cars. Are they going to drive across the border?
There's 87,000 new IRS agents that are going to be heavily armed.
Will they bring their weapon?
Right.
Will they bring their weapons with them over
to use deadly force across the border?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, these are and the thing is, if you think that you can just be a digital nomad, a lot of these nation states know that, and they want their share of your taxation too. If you're running your business, let's say from Mexico, the Mexican government may be keen to that and say, well, then you should pay some taxes here, right? So it's not that easy. And the United States government is aware of this exodus, and they absolutely want your pound of flesh.
But I would be happy to pay a tax in Mexico if it was going to something good. Here, it's like 55% of it goes to war automatically right off the top. And I know that's not going to be the case in Mexico. If I was in Denmark and I paid 75% tax, or whatever it is over there, it would be crazy. But if I'm getting health care, I got a better quality of life, I'm fine with that.
So the real question is, let's say you move to Mexico, and you're like, yeah, I'm done with the United States. I'm sick and tired of all their wars. All of my tax dollars goes to funding these wars all around the world. People don't have Medicare for all. They don't have health care. It's kind of a shit show, right? We can't even get proper infrastructure passed in the United States, but we can fund wars. So you're like, I'm going to go to Mexico. I'm done with it. Well, unless you renounce your citizenship in the United States, you're still paying taxes at the same rate.
Yes.
So you're making good you're working remotely in Mexico and you're living more cheaply, fine. You're still an American citizen, and then you've got to pay taxes on that money.
Right. There's a great book called Nomad Capitalism, or Capital, by Andrew.
It's Nomad Capitalism.
Andrew Henderson. And he talks about how a lot of times Americans, they start to say, this life is too hard. This is too expensive. This place has too high taxes. And so what do? They make these interim steps. Like, we're going to go to Arizona, right? It'll be easier there. It's cheaper there. We can, Florida, right? Or we're going to go to Texas. And then they realize they've just made sort of a half measure step, because they still have all of these hardships around being American. And so it is kind of a more hardcore move to take a step across a border. And his philosophy is go where you're treated best, right? And so if you now are paying taxes to a nation that's going to weaponize its taxation bureau, maybe this is not where you're treated best. This is a time to have these conversations inside of your home.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a hard one, and it's a fascinating one, but it really is. United States is one of only 2 countries in the world that if you move out of that country and are making your income abroad, you still have to pay taxes in America. I think Eritrea is the other country. There's two countries in the world, United States and Eritrea, make you pay taxes back home, even if you don't live there anymore and you make your money elsewhere. So just be very aware.
But violence is a concern. And, I have a personal connection to this because my sister's family lived in Mexico and only just left there in the spring, because the cartel is a regular part of your life. Like, they would want to go and visit her in-laws, and they couldn't take the shortest road because there's cartel on that road. So they had to take, this is something that it's not nothing, right?
Right.
And so you can live in your diaspora, or is it diaspora? How do you say that word?
Diaspora.
Of expats in a guarded community, right? And that is one way to live. But these things are things that you have to think about.
Just like South Africa. We have friends in South Africa, and you live in a walled garden with barbed wire fences and guys with machine guns that are guarding your property.
Yeah.
Right? You do not go out and, I mean, we've heard some horror stories from our friends from South Africa who've left there because of the violence. So this is some, you might be able to save a little bit of money, but you just need to be more aware of it. Maybe Mexico is not necessarily the answer if this is something you're thinking about from the United States, right?
We had someone in the chat from South Africa saying, do we get called out for being South African? Yes, you do. And one of my good friends in my book club actually said that in South Africa, you train your kids that if someone comes, they call it a robot, which is just the stop sign. If you're at a stoplight and someone comes to the car, you train your little kids, get out of the car seat and jump into mommy's lap and we're going to run, right? And that's how you literally train your kids if you're driving around. Someone comes up to the window, jump in mommy's lap because she needs to be able to get you so we can run together the opposite way. This is the way. Yeah, that's crazy to think about, especially when they're really little and they can't get the harness off. These are haunting stories.
Yeah.
Anyway. Real quick, I was going to say, it just seems too coincidental that off the heels, I mean, you just look at like from 2019 until, well, even before that, I would say like right when the pandemic started, having this big transfer of wealth, and it's like they just keep adding to the transfer and taking more and more and more from us. And because everybody's like, I've seen people posting on Facebook, oh, I'm so glad this bill passed because we're finally going to tax the rich. But anybody who thinks this is to tax the rich is not understanding what this is about. This is for microtransactions on us. This is so they can take every single dime of our money. That's why 69% of the money that went into this bill is for enforcement. That means coming after us. The part that helps us was only what? 3% of it goes to support and us being able to call them on the phone.
One of the clearest examples of this that you're just talking about is that there's $7,500 tax credit for EV vehicles, right? As a result of it, because of now this reduction in that price, and now they're getting these tax incentives, the companies have now increased the prices of these cars commensurate with that $7,500. So $7,500 tax credit for getting, the companies said, great, thanks. And they increased the prices of the cars. Like, this is how it works, guys.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to suffer. You are going to suffer. And so this garbage of calling it the Inflation Reduction Act is a total canard. I'll put a pin in it there. All right. We've got more news to get to. We're going to talk about the first male to be appointed the period officer about menstruation. You can't even make this story up. It's unbelievable. We'll get there in a second. So please, please, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel.
But first, we're going to tell you about our friends over at Anthem Software. Do you own a small business and need help growing it? Then AnthemSoftware.com is your one-stop solution. Anthem Software helps small businesses all over America find, serve, and keep more customers profitably by providing world-class CRM software and results-focused marketing services. Your business will not only grow, but dominate in this highly competitive modern world. So go to AnthemSoftware.com. Every business has a song. Let AnthemSoftware.com help you sing yours. Again, visit AnthemSoftware.com to schedule your free demo of this amazing software solution.
Someone in our chat says, I'm new here. Jamie Roy says, I'm new here. Well, welcome, Jamie. Another person says about South Africa, Oscar Sambo says the two safest countries to escape to is South Africa and Mexico. Okay. I mean,
depends on how you live, I suppose.
And where you live, I guess, right?
Sure.
Yes.
Well, and I got a question. Isn't the cartel basically only because of the drug war in the United States, or do they do other things? Like, isn't it basically all drugs?
Oh,
and weapons?
No, actually, the cartel foods. Now will take over, for instance, avocado farms. And because avocados are so valuable, and especially because Westerners just gobble them up, right?
Most of the violence, though, we learn is that from our Mexican family and friends is that the cartels, like the violence is mostly between the cartels or those people who get in the way of the cartels.
Right. And what my brother-in-law was saying, that during lockdowns, the cartels actually were feeding people.
And they had their own logos. They were handing out food during COVID because the government wouldn't. So the cartels were the ones feeding the local communities. And they even had like the food baskets with their cartel logo on the basket. So you knew that this came from this particular drug cartel that was feeding the people.
Yeah.
So it's, yes. And these politicians, of course, unless they're all paid by the cartels. So they're all, unless you throw out the entire government, you're going to have people that are connected to these cartels.
Well, this is the new Lopez Obrador. His whole theory is like hugs, not war, right? He tries to like make his people better rather than go to war with a cartel that he knows he cannot win. So yeah, I don't want to talk about Mexican politics right now, but we can another day.
All right, let's talk about Scotland, shall we? When wokeness has completely jumped the shark, we go to Scotland. My people, my background, my people, and my
okay.
We joke
Clayton's
about this.
like 23andMe has like
my
Morris
ancestry. Yeah, Edinburgh
of the MacLeod Morrises.
Yes, the clan, from the Edinburgh clan. So it goes on back on my mom's side to Edinburgh. We as Scottish pronounce it Edinburgh.
Okay.
So anyway, let's go to Scotland, where they have a great new government program to help ladies learn about their periods and where you can get sanitary products, ladies. There's just one problem. They've chosen a man to lead this because, it's 2022. Here's your man. Here he is, Jason Grant. There he is. At least he is wearing...
It's not a very Scottish name.
At least he's wearing a red shirt.
Sure.
Right?
That's what I was just going to say.
And he's going to help you, ladies, understand your periods.
Okay. So he'll tell us what to wear a looser fitting kilt when you have the cramps, right? And the bloating.
The only problem is men wear the kilts.
Yes.
Do women wear kilts? I guess they do.
So
men wear kilts, right?
So the thing is that he'll have to know what time of the month to wear the looser ones.
Right.
Right. Okay.
He's a former personal trainer. He has been given the job of promoting access to free sanitary products in schools and colleges in the Tay region.
I mean, this is the one piece of this that is a super positive piece of news, is that Scotland has decided to provide sanitary products to anyone who needs them, right? Especially during a hard economy. This is not something that will just be for people who are privileged enough for these products.
Yeah. Look at this photo, though. I just laughed out loud when I saw this photo of Jason explaining to a group of people and a dude how, the women's body works.
Well, he says that the purpose is to demystify talking about menstruation and realize that this is a conversation can be had between genders, which, okay, I get it, because, there's the old trope of when you send your husband to get sanitary products and they're too embarrassed to do it. There's a whole scene in Mr. Mom about this, right? Where he's hanging out by the boxes and he's like, yeah. And
he grabs one of them. Yeah.
Right. So, okay. Do we really need to combat men being sort of embarrassed? Is this a big problem in the world?
I'm surprised that you took this tact on this story. The outrage about a man being chosen for the first time as this is the dignity officer, the period dignity officer. We're choosing a man.
Well,
why am I defending?
Two things. One, this that might be a point that, okay, men
it
can
is a
talk.
point. Martina Navratilova came out and said, this is just effing ridiculous. She said, the fact that she said, have we ever tried to explain to men how to shave or how to take care of their prostates or whatever? This is absurd, she says.
Yes, I agree with her. But on the other hand, we wouldn't talk about it at all if it was a woman that was appointed.
Why? But that's her job, is to go out and then meet with women.
Right,
to talk
because
about
that wouldn't be interesting, right? So this man at least
brings awareness to it because it's a ridiculous story.
Well, right, but and you're talking about a man that's going to be talking to young girls in college, they're going to be uncomfortable to talk about it with a man, I would think, than a woman.
Yes.
Right. This is another piece of it, though, that bothers me, right? Is this idea around unisex bathrooms. The idea of it is that everyone has to be comfortable talking about these bodily functions around all genders, right? And I think that that is something that's a big ask, right? And I think about 13-year-old Natalie, who, you know, was wearing white jeans on accident on a day that I shouldn't have been, right? And wants to deal with that in the confines of a single-sex bathroom. Then these are things, right? What we're saying to everybody is you must be comfortable talking about all things, whether, you know, your body around all genders. And I think that that is maybe too much to ask of any given gender, right? So, and I feel like, especially when it comes to your period, you don't want to discuss this with someone who does not experience it, right? And there's just like, you don't want to hear about it.
This is 2022. So now, like, the idea is, well, maybe if Jason wants to experience it, he can experience it.
Jason cannot experience it. That we're just going to say right now that, and I don't think they're even trying to say that Jason has any experience points, right? But I hope not. But I flashed to the book Leaned In by Sheryl Sandberg when she said that a man will look at a promotion, and these are, of course, gross generalizations, but her point was that a man will see a promotion and be like, yeah, I'm qualified. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take this job. Sure. And a woman will say, well, I need to read 5 books, and maybe I need 5 more years of experience, and maybe I'm not quite ready. Right. And so this is a typical example of that, where a man's like, I can do that. Sure. With 0 experience, none, right? Not even 1 day of bleeding. Or cramping or anything like. Sure, but again, this is not an experience, right? If you're going to talk about this as an experience, I do think that it's not so much that it's annoying that he gets to do it. It's more that it's annoying that they didn't reach out to someone who does experience it.
Susan,
like, you have to have, if you've read this beautiful Anita Diamond book called The Red Tent, like, I do feel like you need to have been in the red tent to get this type of job.
See, D. Wilson says, I'm getting grossed out. Okay, see, this is an example of why maybe women should be talking to women about something that's biological. It's not something that you should be grossed out about. It's a biological function.
I'd be happy to welcome this guy in to tell him exactly what it's like and how he can maybe talk to other people about opening up the conversation, right? But as a leader, no.
Susan, I think it would be better is if they started this in a curriculum in school. Like, they should be talking about this to school kids in the grade where they would start to have it with the boys and girls, so that there's no discomfort around either side, that the guys understand it's okay to talk about it's going to happen to the girls, and the girls are okay that it's going to happen and not embarrassed by the boys. But they they hide it from everybody. They try to make it this secret thing. And I understand that, but I think it's because we don't do that's the way it is.
Susan Dalgetty is a feminist and a columnist for the Scotsman newspaper, says, it's great that Scotland is the first country in the world to offer free period products, thanks largely to the efforts of Monica Lennon, a Labour MSP who made tackling period poverty her mission. But she says, I'm astonished that a man has been appointed to lead on period dignity. It takes mansplaining to a whole new level.
And it also makes me feel like women ourselves could not dignify menstruation, right? Because if it's just women talking about it, we're just hysterical. But if it's a man there, then, oh, okay, now the conversation's serious. Now we can have it because we're legitimized by the presence of a man, and that also is very offensive.
And I feel bad for this guy, Jason. I'm sure he's a nice guy. And his PR people, the people in the wake of this controversy, people reached out to his PR consultancy, and they said that he was not available for an interview. And he says, although affecting every woman directly, periods are an issue for everyone. So, okay, but ridiculous.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes.
I'm so glad that we have now a man to legitimize this experience. Right.
Right. But maybe we could have had a woman do it. I'm just going to throw that out there.
He did have to cover up his tattoo, though, on his back that says, never trust anything that bleeds for a week and doesn't die.
Stupid. Stupid. Ladies, if you want an empowering way to think about your menstruation, please read the book, The Red Tent. It's an amazing book. It's sort of like The Alchemist for women. I cannot say I can talk. We could be here all night if you let me talk about this book. Amazing, amazing book. But I do very much feel like you need to be able to have experience with the red tent to have anything to say about the red tent. And men can read the red tent. It's an amazing book.
I was just going to ask, is it good reading
yes.
for a guy like...
Everybody should read this book.
I watched the movie. We watched the movie.
No, you didn't. I wouldn't let you...
We watched it together.
No, I watched it while you were traveling.
You watched it a second time.
Specifically, yes, I did put it back on again. Yeah, it's a 2-part movie.
Would I still get out of the movie what I would out of the book? Because I'm much rather watch a movie than read a book, personally.
No, you can't watch don't do that in this order. You got to read the book. Just
okay.
You have to. This is you can't replace it because there are choices that were no.
Okay.
This is it's just women are goddesses. Okay. The ability to have a period is one of the things that makes us a goddess. I do not need a man to tell me that experience is sacred, that it's okay to talk about it in public. Here I am talking about it in public. And yeah, I don't need that legitimization across gender. This is what we got, us bleeders. We're in it together.
And this is coming from a woman who ate her placenta, so do not take that seriously.
I think it's great. I think it's great that you're talking about this.
Do you? You put it in the rundown, and you're wearing a shirt with blood on it.
That's right. That's right.
So.
It was either this shirt or the other one, my gynecologist shirt. Have you seen it?
No.
I'm not a gynecologist, but I'll take a look.
No, that's stupid. That's like a 20-year-old shirt. I know. This is 1998.
Welcome to our show. This is something you can't see on cable news, I hope, anyway. Thank you guys so much for subscribing and being a part of our great community here on Redacted. It's very easy to subscribe, and it's free, whether you're on Rumble, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitch, you're on Twitter, or right here on YouTube, wherever you are. Please subscribe. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the stories you might not see in the mainstream media and holding powerful people to account. Our goal on this show is to question everything. That is our goal. And try to be flexible, right? I think flexible people are the people you want to be friends with. Inflexible people who can never move or bend, run away from those people.
Sure.
Run away.
Or as I always say, people that plant their flag. Like, don't be a flag planter. Be willing to pick up your flag and move to a different section. Because if you're always like, I'm gonna support this no matter what, you're never gonna be able to have good conversations.
It's the only way you grow.
All right. Well, that does it for us tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, this was a long show.
Thank you guys so much for subscribing to the show. Remember, we have a daily newsletter. Please subscribe to that. It's free, and it'll be delivered to your inbox first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee. Natalie spends a lot of time, hard time writing this, and I work on it as well. And so we spend a few hours every morning writing it, so you'll have it first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee. So please subscribe. Go to redacted.inc is the website, redacted.inc, not .com. And then you'll get a welcome email from me, Clayton at redacted.inc. And then please just drag it over to your inbox or add it to your contacts so Gmail doesn't flag it as spam. So there you go. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye, everyone.